If there's going to be a comeback game of 2021, I think it has to be Titanfall 2. This game is simply beautiful, it's amazing, and it's one of the few campaigns that I go back to playing time and time again. When people ask if you should play Titanfall 2, the short of it is yes. The game is on sale for under $10 almost all the time. It plays smooth, it's well balanced in multiplayer, it has a fun 5 to 8 hour campaign that builds a relationship between the player and the game. I've purchased this game 3 times now between Steam, Xbox, and PlayStation, if that tells you anything. If you haven't played Titanfall 2, here's the backstory in about 30 seconds. The original Titanfall was published in March of 2014, shortly after the Xbox One, and exclusive for the Xbox family. The game also lacked a single-player campaign, instead opting to tell the story around the multiplayer map loading screens, which could be wildly confusing, but inconsequential to the fun of the gameplay. The lore and gameplay were set, and 2.5 years later, Titanfall 2 erupted onto the scene. Sandwiched between Battlefield 1 and Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, the October 28th release didn't see much fanfare. Thanks, EA. But Titanfall 2 learned from some of the shortcomings of the original by including an amazing single-player campaign that kept it spicy through pacing, storytelling, and 2 different types of combat. It also kept what made Titanfall's multiplayer feel amazing. Players were rewarded for moving, being active, and shooting things. Regardless of how good or bad a player is, they feel like they're doing great because of the map and the game design. Does it have flaws? Yes, and every game does, but Titanfall, and especially Titanfall 2, found a way to take those clunky, awkward mech warrior games and bring their strength and tenacity into an agile, robust, and smooth game. Speaking of awkward games, what's the most awkward game anybody here's ever played? Do me a favor, put that down in the comments below. I'm really curious what the most awkward game out there is. So let's talk about that single player campaign. Titanfall 2 gets off on the right foot by telling a story of rifleman Jack Cooper, who wants to be a Titan pilot. The tutorial is woven into the gameplay through this part of the storyline, and it's fairly critical to the overall emotional connection. Yeah, I said it, emotional connection in the game. The campaign writing is meaningful. It's more pronounced and impactful than many first-person shooters. It almost reminds me of Respawn's other first-person storylines. Jack Cooper and BT-7274, his Titan, develop a friendship and understanding through their shared experiences, and those experiences are, well, kind of crazy, but a good kind of crazy. To keep the game interesting, Respawn introduces and discards mechanics throughout the game, but the most significant to the story and gameplay is in the mission Effects and Cause, which allows the player to swap their time while staying in the same location, making for 2 very unique environments for the one mission. The level of detail in this mission is absolutely insane. Certain routes are only available one way, certain collectibles require careful timing of multiple mechanics, and at the end of the level, Respawn simply drops the mechanic. It's not anywhere else in the game, and that's just one of the reasons why I think this game is so amazing. Titanfall 2 is anything but a shooter on rails, with excellent pacing between the shooting, the puzzles, movement, challenges, and gameplay between the pilot and Titan time. This is an amazing story that I feel like I've already given away too much of. Please go play this game simply for the single player campaign. Multiplayer, on the other hand, is holy cow. Oh my god, wow, I love this. It's amazing. No, really, it's pretty darn good. Steam recently had a free weekend at the end of April, and it brought the player base up about 20% on PC. There was also the free month that PlayStation gave, and its population shot up like crazy, so I'm just waiting on Xbox to give it away for free for a month too and see what happens there. Multiplayer can be frustrating. The most common game mode is attrition, but it's not the only one. The Frontier Defense is absolutely fun, but not as challenging as Horde or Zombie counterparts. Oh wait, you probably want to know why it's good. Well, try Almost No Campers, a game that rewards players for moving all the time, discovering new travel lanes across the map because it's just an absolute masterpiece to move on, unique and creative weapon designs, and yeah, so players do get upset about people using certain weapons, but people get upset in every game. There's the car, which has hip fire, almost auto aim, and then there's the wingman because it's a 2-shot pistol from across the map, or the smart pistol because it auto locks one and bullets track people. But really, each weapon has its case uses and makes the game fun for a wide range of skill players. No, really, case in point is the smart pistol. A lot of people seem to really hate this pistol, but really good players never seem to get caught by a smart pistol user. What the smart pistol does allow is somebody that's not familiar with movement to focus on getting around the map. The smart pistol locks onto the enemy players, and they're able to get a couple kills. The Kraber and the Wingman, though, allow for those with quick reflex like Apex Hunters to quickly wipe enemies from the map. But honestly, the time to kill is so short across all the weapons, so much so that I use the sidearms pretty frequently. The biggest challenge is finding that sweet spot between aiming down sights and hipfire. For the Titans, there's 7 classes in multiplayer that are well balanced between their speed, their health, and their firepower. The talented pilot with no health can take on several enemy Titans at once, where a poor pilot with a solid tank, like the Scorch, get roasted in no time. Using and experimenting with different Titans is pretty interesting. Some players really enjoy certain classes that they might not expect. Usually in games, I tank. But I'd rather take the lighter and faster North Star because it has standoff firepower, moves quickly, and it hits really, really hard. Here's the kicker though. Even in games where I'm not on my A game, or B, or maybe even C, I still have fun because I can maraud through the NPC grunts and stalkers and their reapers to get my points percentages so I can drop in a Titan. I also don't have to pilot the Titan. I can let the auto Titan support me, which can be really handy when I'm going up against pilots trying to catch a rodeo on top. To put a cherry on top, the community is really nice almost all the time. More so than almost any other community I play in. And I'm talking Dota 2, Call of Duty, Madden. Wait, no, those are all pretty toxic.
I'm tracking you. Keep going.
As players run through the levels and start vaulting down the walls and double jumping and shooting and going all kung fu nuts, we realize that the levels are really superbly designed to allow this aggressive horizontal and vertical movement and enjoy learning the controls. In single player, the easier difficulties are fun to practice while running and shooting at targets, while multiplayer, it's entertaining to try and reach new spots by different movement techniques. As a pilot, moving, shooting, and fighting are just as much fun, if not more so, than the Titan combat because of how well the campaign and levels are designed and implemented. As a longtime advocate of doing something simple and doing it well, Titanfall 2 hits the nail on the head for adding running on walls and executing it to perfection. With longer rooms, more open spaces, and large vertical access, it rarely puts the player in a tube or a hall too short that would limit freedom of movement. In fact, most of the collectibles require a clever implementation of wall running to retrieve. Titan combat simply feels powerful when playing as BT or any of the multiplayer Titans. For the campaign, I wish I could have upgraded BT's shields or some other capabilities, but I found myself at a good balance between the firepower, health, shields, and the ability to heal. I also found the 7 different loadouts scattered across the campaign to be fun, and each one's unique enough to serve a purpose and gameplay style. There is a large-scale Titan battle, and I can't even begin to tell you how much fun that fight was. You're moving, shooting, just doing all these different abilities to swing the tide in the malicious favor, and it feels like a large-scale battle and just chaos and really well done. Multiplayer maps are designed well with long sight lines juxtaposed with covering corners, and sometimes it doesn't look all that symmetrical, but it plays really well. Dropping a Titan in doesn't always yield the dominant factor in a fight, as pilots shoot, scoot, and maneuver quickly through buildings and other travel lanes. Respawn really did us a solid by making maps amazing for both pilot and Titan combat. There's always a building or a large rock big enough to have a Titan hid behind it, or, something for a pilot to scamper behind. Titanfall 2 is all about movement and when to expose the Titan. The art of Titanfall 2 is simply gorgeous, and that's because the levels are, simply gorgeous. And although they're very linear in design, they do not feel that way when you're playing due to the wonderful art and style used in the game. 2 of my last playthroughs have been on my PC with an RTX 2080, but if you polish a turd, you still have a turd at the end of the day. And Titanfall 2 is not a turd. In fact, visually, I would say that Titanfall 2 holds up extremely well against modern releases. When inside a building or a structure, there's sufficient detail that it looks great. And I'll be honest, when I was inside structures, I didn't go up to the bookshelf to see if I could read the title on the spine, but I made sure I could run on it. And no, it's not up to the level of detail in Halo Combat Evolved Remaster, but it's good enough for me to play and shoot. For the single player campaign in particular, the art's incredible, and it really opens up the levels, which are restricted to a wide lane or a small area to explore, but the art department outdid themselves by making the outdoor levels feel massive. Absolutely, incredibly, and beautifully massive. The horizon on several planets is just way, way out there, and it just feels like this whole game, although I'm in combat over here, There's a whole universe out there that Respawn has the opportunity to explore in future games, like Apex Legends or hopefully Titanfall 3. Even in the levels where Jack Cooper has to go in the tunnels or in a smaller confined space, it's visually interesting. And just going back to effects and cause, the swap back and forth in the timelines can be mesmerizing to behold. The monetization of this game is one of the downsides, and that's mostly because I personally don't like DLCs and in-game purchases. There's digital content for sale within Titanfall 2, including 5 DLCs, which include cosmetics. Originally, there was a Monarch pay-to-play package, but that's over with. The good news is that there's no loot boxes and no gambling techniques. You buy what you want to buy and you can see it immediately. Overall, I'm disappointed that there's monetization, but I'm grateful for no gambling and nothing that's kind of addictive. There's no pay to win, so I guess it's all about the small victories. The in-game purchases are relatively cheap, around the $5 mark, while the DLCs are closer to that $20 to $25 mark. As for who should be playing this game, well, I don't recommend this game for kids and young teens. There is a significant amount of blood, gore, shooting, dismemberment, and death. I personally don't know where anyone's kids are in maturity, so obviously if you're a parent and you want to play with your kid, I recommend playing the game solo first and seeing if you're comfortable exposing your kids to this. It's digital violence on a battlefield. Parental controls are governed by Steam, Xbox, or PlayStation Network. You're not going to find anything within the game that actually dials down the blood, gore, or just turns it off. Titanfall 2 is mostly there for entertainment. I don't think it's going to teach us anything new. However, the puzzles and some of the sequences required in the game help foster creative thinking. This game also requires thinking in 3, sometimes 4 dimensions instead of just 2. Empathy, sympathy, and emotional attachment are also present talking points for parents looking to play something with their kids. And as for online interaction, there is no requirement to have online interaction with other people when playing the single player campaign. Online multiplayer will allow for interaction online, but I've been able to mute individuals I don't want to listen to. There's also online networks similar to other games, clans, or guilds, which make finding online matches a little easier. So in summary, yes, I do recommend spending a few dollars on Titanfall 2 and enjoying a great 5 to 8 hour campaign experience in a highly entertaining multiplayer game. I do not recommend it for tweens and younger. At the end of the day, this game is simply amazing. It looks beautiful, it plays great, it's based on movement, it says, hey, I don't really like campers. This has been Wes from Ridir Gaming. Thanks for hanging out and talking Titanfall 2. If you've been here this long, do me a favor, hit like and subscribe, and yeah, come back for the next video. Anyway, do good, play hard, game on. We'll see you next time.